It's been said that every quilt tells a story, and it's so true. But I also believe every quilter has a story to tell. I wanted to hear about the people behind these wonderful quilts and thought you'd enjoy hearing about their lives also. Welcome to A Quilter's Life. I'd have to give Jackie Brown the Extra Patience Award. I am so thankful that she worked around my schedule when I not only had to cancel on her once, but twice because of my medical issues. Then what a thrill it was for me that her daughter, Amy, popped in to say hi as we started the interview. It was a wonderful day for me. Jackie is passionate about her work as a teacher, designer, and long-arm quilter. She simply can't think of anything she'd rather do. For her, the most rewarding part of her work is seeing the look of excitement and satisfaction on the faces of her customers. Whether she's finishing their quilt or teaching them how to quilt for themselves. She thanks God for her husband, children, and grandchildren, as well as the people who have given her the opportunity to serve them through Jackie's Machine Quilting. Jackie, thank you so much for joining us on A Quilter's Life. I am so excited to hear your story.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me here. I'm ready to share.
Great. I heard your daughter shared my podcast with you.
She did. She's kind of getting into quilting. And so she called me up and said, "Hey, Mom, you need to listen to this Quilter's Life. It's a good podcast." And so I thought, well, I'm always looking for something to listen to, especially when I'm quilting. So yeah, I put you on and I've listened to quite a few episodes.
Well, thank you so much for being a listener. I believe this episode is the 277th episode, or really close to that. So there's a lot of episodes for you to listen to yet.
That's a good thing because I'm in my shop I can listen to music, but those podcasts are really motivational.
Yeah, there's some really good ones out there too, besides mine. Jackie, share where you were born and raised.
Well, I was born in Santa Ana, California, and I was raised in California, not in Santa Ana, but I lived in the same town from elementary all the way through high school. Everybody knew everybody because it was a small town back then, but that's where I was born and raised.
Wow. Is there a special childhood memory?
There's a lot of special childhood memories, especially with my grandmother. She was a professional seamstress. She sewed for movie stars. And again, I lived in California, and so did she. And she taught me how to sew. Man, I was young, but she taught me how to sew. I would pull up a chair next to her sewing machine because she lived with us. And just watch her. At a time, she lived with us. Other times, she moved to Hollywood or Beverly Hills area to be closer to her customers. So I would just sit there and watch and just ask questions. And she never turned me away. She never said, "Oh, you asked too many questions." She always answered them and was willing to teach me. So that, just sitting there watching her, was one of them. Another one was, I was able to spend the summer with her when she lived in Santa Monica, and she lived right off of the pier, Santa Monica Pier. She had gotten behind in some of her work. She had quite a few clients, and she needed some help. So I'm like, yeah, I'll help you. I don't know what I'm doing, but so I spent a week, I think it was a week, maybe a week and a half with her to help her get caught up. The first thing she gave me was a full skirt. I mean, it was very, very full. The hem went on forever and ever. And she said, "Here, I want you to hem this, and this is how I want you to do it." And so I did. And I'm telling you, that took me all day to do. But Grandma was very particular about how she wanted things done, and I knew that. So I did my very best and took my time at doing it. I helped she had to do some alterations for another customer. And she said, "I want you to sew this on the machine." And so I did. And I did a few other things. But while I was there, also, she always had fabric, and she said, I want you to pick anything you want to make your school clothes. So I just, yay, I get to make my school clothes, and better yet, Grandma gets to help. She's going to teach me. So I made all my school clothes that year. She got done with all the things that needed to be done, and they were ready to be delivered. And so we got in the car and went to deliver them. And we get home. This was back in the early 70s. And so we get home, and she hands me a $50 bill. So I asked her, I said, what is this for? I'm here to help you. I don't need this. And she said, no, 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 no. You worked. Now you're going to get paid. So I said, okay. And so she took me to a department store, fancy, fancy department store in Hollywood. And she said, okay, now you need to pick, I needed some belts and, accessories for my outfit. I didn't have enough money to get what I wanted. So, of course, she pitched in a little bit. But that's one of the biggest memories that I have as a child, and learning how to sew, and the biggest memory I have of my grandmother as well.
What special time.
Yes, very special.
So you spent that time with your grandma when you were in high school. Is that correct?
I was in middle school during that time.
Oh, wow.
I think I was in the 7th grade. Yeah, I think I was. Yeah, it was so long ago.
Well, that's still an early start for such professional sewing.
Yeah, and she also took me around to her different customers. And so I got to meet some pretty famous people. So it was pretty exciting.
That would be.
Yeah. Some of the people actually that she sewed for, my grandmother, was, do you know Kay Starr? A very famous singer in the 50s and 60s. Jim Neighbors. She sewed for his mother. So Grandma was invited to go to Vegas because Jim Neighbors and Kay Starr, they were doing shows in Vegas. And they invited my grandmother to go because Kay Starr took her mother, and they gave my grandmother gambling money, food, everything was paid for, everything. And Jim Neighbors came to her room one day and said, hey, can you press these pants for me? He didn't want to tell her because she was kind of on a vacation type thing. And she said, sure, that's the least I could do, And so she pressed him, and he gave her $100 bill for it. And she said, no, 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 I'm not taking this. I'm not taking this. But anyways, I thought that was always a funny story when she came home and told it, And she was also kissed on the cheek by Elvis Presley.
Wow.
Yeah. But she sewed for Jackie D. Shannon, the Lennon sisters, a bunch of people. And she made some beautiful, beautiful show gowns. Beautiful.
I bet she did.
Grandma took me to Kay Starr's house one time because Grandma had to do a fitting for Kay Starr. And so we went back in Kay Starr's beautiful home in Beverly Hills. Went back in her bedroom back there, and I was just starstruck, And Kay Starr, Grandma's pinning here and pinning there, trying to get the gown to fit right. And Kay Starr pulls out this little, I think this is on my Facebook somewhere, but it looks like a little lunchbox, but it's made out of silk, and it's got little gold handles and gold hinges on it and a little gold clasp. And it looks like actually like a little treasure chest type thing. She gave it to me, and it came with a little mirror and a little change purse. And she said, I'm going to put this penny in here. And if you leave this penny in here, you will never be poor. I still have the penny.
That was going to be my question.
That was real exciting for me. I mean, because I didn't grow up around that.
Right.
And to be able to be there and to talk to somebody like that. And then when I was older and the kids were older, we went to Disneyland. My kids were older, took them to Disneyland, and she was doing a concert there. And so I walked up to one of the bodyguards. I mean, he was trying to push me away, and I said, no, 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 that's Kay Starr. My grandmother used to sew for her. Can you ask her if she can just come and say hi? Because I've met her. I knew who she was. And she did remember me. And she came to our table and sat with us.
Wow. That is so much fun. Now, besides quilting through the years, have you had other employment?
I have. Once I got married and started having children, I went to work. Sewing just kind of went off to the side. And so I worked for a grocery store. I worked in the meat department and I worked my way up into management. It was very, very hard work. Very hard work. Yeah. But I liked it because I like to stay busy and I like to move. So it was good for me.
Friends that I've had that work in the grocery store business, it always seems like there's a little extra drama there. Was that hard to deal with?
There was always drama. No, I'm the type of person that drama, keep it to yourself. I don't get into that because I'm focused. I have a job to do, and that's what I'm going to do. And I have basically done that my whole life, actually. If I want to do something, I focus. Drama it's not something I like to get into,
That's
but
good.
there was a lot of it. And I think that's true for almost any working place.
Mm-hmm. So you grew up in California. Where are you now, and how did you get there from California?
I'm in Texas. So my ex-husband, when my oldest daughter was 2 years old, his family is from Texas. So he wanted to move back here. And so that's what we did. And so I've been here since 79. I went back to visit a few times, my mother and brothers and sisters, but I have no desire and haven't for a very long time to go back there and live. In fact, my family is no longer in California either. So, yeah, it was a nice place to grow up in the small town, and you knew everybody and had a lot of fun. But I like it here in Texas. This is where my family is.
Yeah, and California has changed so much in those years.
Yeah, that's what I hear.
Jackie, is there anything else about your family you wanted to share?
My family, I have 10 grandchildren, 3 girls, and the rest are boys. So they keep me busy. I love my family. We have family outings every once in a while, and everybody gets together. We just have a lot of fun. And I just share my love with my family as much as I can.
With you saying that they keep you busy, that sounds to me like they live close to you.
They do. They live about 30 minutes away. So that's pretty close. Yeah. I see them on a pretty regular basis.
What a blessing.
Yes.
Just like you had the opportunity with your grandmother to spend with her, and you've been able to share some of that. But in the future, when your great great grandchildren look back on who you are, how do you think they will describe you?
I've thought about this. I would like for them to describe me as very determined to get something done. I've always been that way. If I want to learn how to do something, I'm very determined on how to figure out to do it to the point to where I feel very comfortable with how I'm doing it. I've done that my whole life in the workplace as well as with my quilting and even around the house. Just being very determined and respectful. That's pretty much it. I want them to see that if you want something done, you have to do it yourself and don't give up. Don't ever give up if you want something done, whether it's quilting, it doesn't matter what it is. Don't give up, just do it.
Is there something else you would like to say to them?
I would like to say to them is don't ever give up on anything. Just keep on going and push through the tough spots, get over the humps, and move forward because things do get better. So many people get discouraged because they don't push past that hump. As everybody knows, there's a lot of humps in life, and if we don't push through them, we're just going to kind of stand still. So I would like to say, keep going.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that makes sense.
It does to me. One of my husband's favorite sayings is keep moving forward.
There you go. Keep moving forward and keep learning.
Yeah. And I believe that keep moving forward is from Walt Disney.
Oh.
Well, also besides quilting, what other crafts do you do or you've done in the past?
I've sewn clothes for myself and for my kids when they were smaller. Then they get to that certain age where they don't want handmade clothes because they got to keep up with their peers. So I like to garden. I like to be out in the yard when I'm not quilting, transplanting, even mowing, weed eating, just being outside, outdoors. And I crochet. I'm not a professional crocheter. I just kind of dabble in it, but I do set my mind if I want to make something. I usually don't go by a pattern because I know how to do the stitches, but I don't know how to read patterns. That seems kind of weird, I know. But if I want to make something, I'm going to figure it out. And that was another thing my grandmother taught me too. She said, even with crocheting or knitting, all you need is a pattern or an old sweater and kind of drop your stitches or add your stitches. So that's something I learned from her. So I'm carrying that on.
I've seen some of those crochet patterns and they do look complicated the way they're written. You have to know shorthand to read them.
Yeah, my older sister, she could pick up a pattern and she could crochet anything. And she was really good at it. But yeah, I can't read the patterns. I've never really taken the time to learn the different language, I guess.
Do you think any of your other hobbies or crafts show up in your quilting?
There is another little hobby that I have, and that's doodling. I doodle on paper. When I was in high school on my folders, I always doodled. I didn't know it then, but now that I'm a quilter, I encourage my students to doodle. So now I totally understand the doodling process and why I did it in high school. Not because I knew I was going to be a quilter, but that's just what happened. But doodling, it has carried on into my quilting, yeah, over the years without me even knowing it, until I became a quilter. And somebody told me when I first got into quilting is you need to doodle on paper. And I thought, what? And they said, no, you need to doodle on paper. So try this. And so I did. And I just got carried away with it.
Tell about who introduced you to quilting.
Nobody. Nobody. I've always been fascinated with quilt. And I love to sew anything that has to do with needle, thread, and fabric, and a machine, of course. But as far as quilting, my other grandmother, my mother's mother, she had a lot of quilts that they made because they had to. And I loved them when we spent the night there. And they were so cuddly and warm. And I've just always been really fascinated with them, but never really took it on until one day I decided I wanted to make a quilt. Just like most quilters, when they first start quilting, that's what they do. And I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I had to sew this square to this square and then this stashing to this part. And I didn't have a pattern. Again, I just went in my sewing room and started cutting fabric and sewing it together. And it's one of the worst quilts I've ever made, but you know what? It's my favorite. One of my favorites. I was going to quilt that on my sewing machine. And back then I just had no clue how to do it. So I ended up hand quilting it. I also said that I would never quilt another quilt as long as I live. Now I've quilted close to 3,000 quilts.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And that's the next question. Do you have a favorite quilt?
I do. I have a few favorite quilts. So this one in the background here, this is called Amelia's Garden. And the pattern is actually called Springtime in the Garden. It was a block of the month. And this was back when I've been quilting for 20 years. So I'm going to say after about 5 years, I thought, well, I want to learn something learn how to applique. And this quilt here has all different types of applique in it. Plus, it also has some hand embroidery. And so I thought, well, that would be perfect for me. So I did. And the class was, we met once a month, every Saturday at a quilt store. And the lady that designed it said that whoever comes up with the name for this quilt will get the class for free. So I went home, I got on my computer, and I got 6 names. I don't even remember what the other 5 were, but she chose Springtime in the Garden. So, and that's one of the ones that was on my list. So that's what the pattern is called, but this one is actually called Amelia's Garden. And Amelia's Garden is my granddaughter who we lost at birth. So I thought, well, all the other grandchildren are playing in the yard, and in the garden, and I thought, I'm going to call this Amelia's Garden. So I got it out because I let it sit and sit and sit. I didn't even have it put together. I had all the blocks done, but I didn't have it put together. And I thought, okay, I'm going to get this done. This is Amelia's Garden and she needs to play in it. So this is by far my favorite. It's got crystals on it. I took a class on tatting from a lady, and it took me a year to tat, but there is tatting all the way around the inner border. So, yeah. And for anybody that doesn't know what tatting is, it's just a bunch of knots that you use a little shuttle, square knots. But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's got crystals in it. It's got all kinds of different techniques in it. And it's been in a couple of shows, small shows. It won Best of Show in one show. Then it won a ribbon in another show. So, yeah. So that's one of my favorites. The other one is called sheI'd. And that one is in the Paducah Museum. And it traveled all over the country into the AQS shows. And it won a lot. That is not my quilt. That is one of my clients' quilts, and we collaborated on it. And so when it went to Paducah, the award that it got was Best Movable Machine Quilting. And that award was up there with Best of Show. So I was really excited about that. And that's why it got into the Paducah Museum, is because of that award.
Now, when you have a quilt in a museum like that, do they keep it forever or do they keep it for a length of time and then return it? How does that all work?
We could have decided to not take the prize money and then gotten the quilt back. But we decided to take the prize money, and so now the museum owns it. And I believe it's in storage right now, but every once in a while they said that it'll come out and they'll display it. So they have to make their rounds on those. But that was real exciting for me to be able to say, yay. Yeah.
Was there another one you wanted to share?
Well, there's quite a few, actually. Sorry about that. So we talked about Amelia's Garden and sheI'd. And then there's another one that's been in a few shows also. It's called Oak and Rose. And it represents actually Beauty and the Beast. It's another collaboration that I did with somebody. And it's just a very, very beautiful, beautiful quilt. I'm not sure how that one's doing right now, but hopefully keeping the fingers crossed. But the pictures of those are on my Facebook page as well, and Instagram, I believe.
Great. I'm sure we'll want to go out and look at them since they don't have the video here to see how beautiful they are.
Well, the sheI'd quilt, it took me, I had it for a year. And it was right when COVID hit, when they shut everything down. And of course, I got COVID and I got it really bad. And so I wasn't able to work for quite some time. And then to get my energy back was another thing. So I had it for a year and I finished it almost a year to the day.
And some of those quilts can take a long time. And, I don't think any of them take a short amount of time.
No, when you're doing show quilts, though, yeah. Because you have to bury most of the threads. I don't bury all of them, but you need to bury most of them, certain ones, and that takes time. And then the very detailed work that goes with it.
Well, you haven't been quilting as long as some of the people, so you haven't seen all those new tools come out. Some of them were out there, I guess, when you started. But is there a tool that you use that you are so happy is around?
Yes, my trusty seam ripper. I know that when it comes to, oh, I got to pick out these stitches, but it's always good to have that tool. That tool has saved me many, many times. And I still pick out stitches. I did today. I picked out some stitches because something wasn't going the way I wanted it to go. But yeah, my good old seam ripper.
Now, for your seam ripper, is it just the normal one off the shelf or is it a specialty made one?
It's just one off the shelf. So I have a few of them. I have one at each station. Yeah, I would have to say my seam ripper.
Yeah, they're great to have close by. So, do you like all the steps of quilting or is there a particular step that you look forward to?
I really like all the steps of quilting. I don't get to piece very often because I'm always quilting on my long arms, or I'm teaching, or I'm designing. So I like all the steps. I just love to use my hands and I love to make things and create things. And it's really about, the end result. And if I mess up, we can always fix it. Anything can be fixed. So, yeah, I just like to work with my hands. But I like all of them, but my most favorite, I think, is long arm quilting.
Now, did I hear an S on that you said long arms?
Yes. I have two of them. I have my Gamel that I bought when did I buy that? 2005. And it is not computerized. Everything I do on it is all freehand. And I have to figure out ways to get things done. At first, it was very, very difficult, but I love free motion. I love free motion work. And my other machine is a handy quilter Amara, and it's got the computerized system on it. I use it also. I mostly do free motion on it as well, but I use it for doing edge to edge quilting, or if I create a design myself, I work in Illustrator to create designs, then I'll stitch it out on my Amara.
Nice. I hear so much work goes into the background if you're going to put that on so you know where it's going to hit on your quilt. I can't imagine all the math that you're doing.
No, there's no math. Me and math don't work well together. I just figure it out. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. And when I teach, that's how I teach my students. This is how you can figure it out. I make it easier for them. But yeah, there's no math.
Tell about your worst quilting experience.
Oh. I got a quilt one time that the lady, she sent it. And as long arm quilters, we need that extra backing. And I always like to have at least 4 inches on all 4 sides, larger than the top. And for some reason, she just did not get it. And I told her, I said, I can't quilt this like this. I mean, I only had like an inch, if that, in some areas. And it was a big quilt. And the larger it is, as you're rolling, you don't know what's going to happen. It might shift on you. So I told her I cannot quilt this. And oh, please, please, please quilt this for me. You can cut the border because the border's big. And I'm not going to cut your quilt. So, oh me, I can't say no. So I took it and put it on my machine, and I damaged my machine doing it. I just had purchased my Amara, and I damaged it. It hit a pin because it got too close. Because you have to pin the quilt to the leaders. So it was in the shop for about 2 weeks. That was my worst experience. Yeah. I have another one too. When I first got my Gamel in 2004, I put a quilt that I had thrown together really, really quick, not knowing what I was doing, put it on the machine. I love very dense quilting ever since I saw it at my first quilt show. And so that's what I wanted to do, that quilt, but I didn't know how to do it. So I started quilting away, And I didn't like where it was going. I was halfway through and I did not like where it was going. And so I took it off and I took every single stitch out, started over, and it didn't look any different. I still have that quilt to remind me of that.
So it just wasn't turning out what you had in your head.
No, especially as a brand new quilter, it's like, this is not working for me. But, there's that determination. I did finish it.
And to take out that dense quilting probably took you 10 times the amount of time as it did to put all those stitches in.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What has drawn you to this craft of quilting rather than doing anything else that you could do?
It lets me get my creative side out. In the beginning, there wasn't one. It's about the end result for me. So if I can get it from my head into the quilt, that's what I want to accomplish. That's the end result. And it's just so rewarding, very, very rewarding to be able to do that. I love to quilt. I really love the designing part of it, even more so now that I've been doing more of that. It's all about the end result.
Mm-hmm. And when you're not making a show quilt or a quilt for your business, who are you making your quilts for?
I probably have a handful of quilts for myself, for my customers mainly. Like I said earlier, I've quilted about 3,000 quilts. Like I said, I like to design, and so I love whole cloth quilts. And so to be able to design one and to get it onto a quilt is very satisfying for me. So those are wall hangings, and I use those when I teach or when I do programs or things like that. That I do what I love to do.
Do you have a special project going on right now?
I've always got projects going on. I'm actually designing. In the evenings, I usually design on Illustrator on my computer patterns for myself and for the public. I have many of them on my website. I'm working on 2 quilts for customers, one on each machine. So I have to go back and forth because both of them are custom. And I am working on a pieced quilt, by the way, which I rarely get to do. So it's a very simple piecing, just 2-inch 4 squares, all in neutral colors. And I haven't really decided how I want that to turn out yet. The way I quilt is I just do it. And if I want to add, whether it's piecing, whether it's quilting on the long arm or on the domestic, I just go with the flow, whatever I think. I never plan anything out, in other words.
Wow.
No.
Share a quilting tip that you like to give.
Okay, here's a good one. And this is what I tell my students or anybody that comes to my studio and needs help or whatever. Take your time. Please take your time. And don't rush, because if you rush, you're really not saving any more time because you might have to fix something. And it may turn out not the way you wanted it to if you don't take your time. So I totally stress, take your time, relax, and be patient and practice. So that's more than one tip.
But it all ties together. That's a good tip.
Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah.
Well, we mentioned a little bit that you do have a quilting business. Describe what happened to it was your hobby and how did it become an actual business for you?
Well, that's a funny story because it never was a hobby. Well, like I said, I've always been fascinated with quilts. And so I found a quilt guild to join near my home. And so I did. And then people started talking about the show. We got to do the show. Everybody's going to the show. What show? I said. They said, the Dallas show, the Dallas Quilt Show. What? They show quilts? I had no clue whatsoever. And I thought, well, I got to check this out. So I went to the Dallas Quilt Show and I was so overwhelmed with all the quilts. And I'd never made a quilt yet. And so I thought, oh, this is so fascinating. And I was very, very fascinating in the actual quilting of it, the stitching of it. So I rushed home and I told my husband, I'm going to buy a long arm. He said, okay. He had no clue what it was. And so I shopped around for a long arm and I found one, but I went into business before I got my long arm. Then I started quilting for myself and my sisters. And I had to teach them how to piece quilts over the phone, which I wasn't really that great at. So I could practice and started showing them at the Quilt Guild. And it just started flowing after that. People wanted me to start quilting their quilts. And then eventually they would put them in shows and they'd get ribbons. And I just went on and on from there. It was not a hobby. It's straight into business. I would like to make it a hobby someday. And I think actually it is for me a hobby because I've got the long arm quilting, I've got the domestic quilting, and I set up my machine every once in a while just to relax and just play on just a piece of fabric. And then I'm designing on the computer so it doesn't get boring. I have so much that I've got going on that it keeps me quite busy and I enjoy every bit of it. Oh, and I got to mention too is one of the things I'm working on is I'm working on a coloring book for quilters. Hopefully it'll get out there.
That sounds very, very interesting.
Well, thank you. It's been fun.
And share the name of your business and tell us how you came up with the name.
Jackie's Machine Quilting, very simple. So when I did go into business, of course, I had to think of a name. And Jackie's Machine Quilting was not something I had thought about. So I really didn't want my name in it. But I've got two daughters and they were helping me and they said, no, you need to call it Jackie Machine Quilting. And I wasn't real fond of that at first, but I thought, well, name, I guess. So that's how that came about. And it's been that for over 20 years now.
Amazing. But I have heard that having your name in there helps your customers relate to you.
Yeah, I think it does. Yeah.
So what does Jackie's Machine Quilting offer?
I offer edge-to-edge quilting. I also offer patterns for computerized systems, and those also come with PDFs so that if you don't have a computerized system, you will get a PDF for the patterns. I have those available. I also teach. I love to teach. It is so rewarding. So many people come in to the classroom. I can't do that. I can't do that. And I thought, well, yeah, you can. You can do this. I'm going to show you how. So I've learned how to show them how to do different techniques step by step to make it a lot easier for them. And it's just so rewarding to me to just see the smiles on their face when they accomplish what they came in to learn. And then the coloring book, hopefully. So there we go.
Well, I was looking at your website and looking at those whole cloth quilts that you were working on or posted there. And I just thought, how elegant. And then I looked up at the name of your class and it said, Elegant by Design, whole cloth.
Uh-huh.
Wow.
Yeah. I designed that years ago when I was first learning how to use Illustrator. And so I got better at using Illustrator. So I thought, well, I've got to redesign this now because I have to get it to the point where it needs to be. So I did, and I've actually taught that before, and it's on my website now. And yeah, and my daughter actually named that one Elegant by Design. I have another one. I don't know if it's on there. It's got hearts on it. I did a Facebook Live group class on that, and it's a little wall hanging, but it's really, really pretty as well. I need to get that one out there too.
Well, they look great.
Thank you.
So do you remember when you first started offering your classes and that first person signed up, how exciting that was?
I was nervous. I was very, very nervous. And it was domestic machine quilting class. And I taught myself how to do that as well. So I was just really nervous because I didn't know if I was doing it right. But I did the class and everybody was very pleased and everybody did very well. And so I thought, well, I guess I did do it right. I don't know. But it was very rewarding for me. But again, I was nervous at first. And usually when I do any kind of class, even to this day, in on hands class in person, I do have a little bit of nerves go on, but after I get in there and start talking to everybody and teaching them and showing them, it seems so natural for me. I just love it. And I always, if you have any questions, just please ask because that's why I'm here. Just ask me those questions.
There's no wrong question.
There is not.
I think we covered how you started your professional quilting for others. You just jumped into it, right?
Yes, I jumped into it not even knowing what I was doing. In fact, my very first customer quilt, I thought, oh, I'll do some edge to edge. Those are easy enough because back then all I had was my non-computerized system. So I used a laser light to follow the line of the design. I thought that's easy enough. I did show and tell at the guild and somebody brings me a quilt and she said, but I want it custom. And I thought, well, I can't say no. So I thought, okay, I've got this expensive machine and I've got to put it to use and I've got to learn. So I did. I custom quilted her quilt for her and it was for her granddaughter. And I did a lot of cross hatching in it. And I think I put some feathers in it. I mean, this was, gosh, back 2005, I think. I'm just the whole time just a nervous wreck because, oh, she's not going to like this. She's not going to like this, But I kept pushing forward until I finished it. And she came to pick it up and she just absolutely loved it. So it really encouraged me to keep on going. And I just kept on getting more quilts from the guild. And yeah, it was very rewarding.
Looking at your whole cloth quilts and all the tight quilting you do or just the quilting that's on there, it shows that your doodling really, really helped.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have a funny story to tell about my doodling. When I first got my long arm, and I told you, somebody told me, Jackie, you need to doodle on paper. And so, the spiral notebooks, they have the lines in them. And I had a bunch of them here at the house that was left over from kids. And I thought, okay, I'll just doodle on these. And that was back before cell phones. Well, no, there was cell phones, but they were the flip phones. And my husband got a phone call and he needed to write notes. And he kept turning the page and turning the page. And it was filled up with doodling for quilting because they said you have to make it continuous. You can't pick up that pencil or that pen. Anyway, so from his work that he does, he was able to make me a book. He brought me this book and it says politics on the cover. It's got a cover on it and everything. It looks like a book and it's about 3 inches thick. And so I thought, I am not going to read that. I've got quilting to do. So no, just open it up, he said. So I did. I opened it up and it is a whole ream of blank paper. So that became my doodling book. And I would sit for hours and hours and hours just filling up the pages front and back, going and going and going, just doodling, just getting creative, turning this awful thing that I did into this magnificent looking design. Because, like I said, I'm not going to give up. I'm just going to keep going. I paid too much for that machine for it to just sit there. So, yeah, I doodled and doodled and doodled, and I have several doodle books now. So now he has paper to write notes on. Not my doodle book, though.
So you haven't quite filled up those 3 inches yet?
Not yet. Now, I don't doodle as much as I used to because I've got other things going on. Now, I doodle on my computer a lot, too, and those doodles do turn into designs, and I don't put a design that I've drawn into it. I haven't done that yet. I need to because I have so many of them. But I start from scratch on my computer to create the designs right now. But yeah, I don't know. I just love the designing end of it.
Well, you do a great job.
Thank you.
Is there anything else about your business that you wanted to share?
Just that it's jackiesmachinequilting.com. my website, check it out. And I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I do have some online courses as well.
And I believe I saw you on YouTube.
Yes, I am on YouTube as well. That's all new to me. So I'm trying to make that work and trying to get it going just to get the education out there. People won't be so afraid of their machines, their domestic or their long arm.
Yeah, because like you said, they're so expensive. We want to get good use out of them.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you how many times I've done a class to where I've asked my student, how long have you had your machine? And they'll say, oh, quite some time. Well, have you used it? No. I was like, well, you're going to now. We're going to get busy here. We're going to learn to quilt. I start them out very slow and very basic so that they won't be so intimidated.
Yeah.
I really love the dense quilting. That just relaxes me. And I know that's hard for people to understand because I know in the beginning when I started doing dense quilts, my neck would hurt, my shoulders would hurt, because you just tense all up. And that's where you learn you have to relax to be able to make it work. Otherwise, that machine's going to go where you don't want it to go. So relaxing, and I really stress that a lot for people that I had to teach myself to relax. And I'll tell you what, my grandmother, again, going back to my grandmother who was a seamstress, when she was teaching me how to sew, she said, Jackie, don't you watch that needle. And I said, well, no, you have to watch the needle. Otherwise, it's going to bite you. Nope, you don't need to watch the needle. Don't you watch that needle. You watch your guide where you want it to go. And so when I got my long arm, I was having a really hard time because I was watching the needle. And it's hard not to do. But I was watching the needle and my machine would just kind of jerk. And I would have this little gash in my design from the thread. And then I would take it out and I'd start over and it happened again. And I thought, okay, something is not working right here. And I just got to thinking, I don't know if grandma was with me that day or what. I heard this voice say, not really, but I heard, don't watch that needle. So I thought, okay, I'm going to watch where I'm going. And lo and behold, it works. You don't watch the needle. You always watch where you're going and you'll be more successful at it and relax.
You make it sound so simple.
I wish it was. So many people over the years say, as you make it look so simple, the hours, the work that was put into it, to make it look simple, you have to do. It's just part of it. It's like any hobby. You have to start from the ground and build up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for sharing your story on A Quilter's Life. This was so much fun. And thanks again for being so understanding in working with me to get this episode scheduled.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, and goodbye.
Goodbye. You can find more stories on aquilterslife.com or subscribe on your favorite podcast player so each episode will be downloaded automatically. Also, I want to hear about you and your wonderful quilts. Please contact me, Paula Chamberlain, through the website to set up an interview. And as always, thanks for listening.